Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and certified informational privacy professional, providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Hello, Justin Daniels here. I am a corporate M&A and tech transaction equity partner at the law firm Baker Donaldson. I am passionate about helping companies solve complex cyber and privacy challenges during the life cycle of their business. I am the cyber quarterback helping clients design and implement cyber plans, as well as help them manage and recover from data breaches.
And this episode is brought to you by Ding, Red Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, e-commerce, professional services, and digital media. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more and to check out our new best-selling book, Data Reimagined, Building Trust One Bite at a Time, visit redcloveradvisors.com. Ready for some fun?
I'm ready to go on a cruise.
I know. I am missing our cruise. It was really a lot of fun. Someone made me breakfast and lunch and dinner and dessert and entertained me and towel animals.
But interestingly enough, on our cruise, we encountered a lot of interesting areas where we have privacy with apps and information. And so today will be a really interesting opportunity to talk about that because we're traveling and maybe we don't think about privacy, but it's always there.
It is. So today we have Eduardo Ortiz, who is the manager of data privacy and information governance at Carnival Cruise Line and leads key data privacy and protection programs. He is a passionate privacy professional and loves to amplify all things data privacy, expand his knowledge, provoke discussion, and incite action. Well, we're so excited that you're here with us today. Can we go on a cruise? Where are we going?
Yeah. Fun fact, I've actually never been on a cruise.
Oh my goodness. We might have to change that.
Yeah. I'm looking to change that here pretty soon, but I'm so excited to be on the show with you guys. As I was sharing, in some networking circles, in exploration of some great resources to expand my skills, I was, fortunate enough to encounter you guys' podcast, and I've been listening ever since. And my favorite place to listen is in the sauna.
Well, we're so excited that our podcast is helpful and useful to your daily job. So thank you so much.
Or you can just come. Well, you're in Houston, so it's not like you could just step outside and you're in a sauna.
Yeah, that is true. But I prefer to sit down in the nice sauna and listen to you guys have some really thoughtful discussions with some very experienced practitioners in the space. So it's been great.
You gonna get us started?
Let's get this party started. So, Eduardo, talk to us a little bit about how your career evolved to this point with Carnival Cruise Lines.
It's been like a lot of privacy professionals. I've taken maybe an unorthodox kind of route to get here, but I'm a reformed sort of classicist and educator. So long ago, I wanted to be a teacher, a professor, actually. So went to school and got all my degrees in classical studies, which is just broadly speaking a study of kind of like the ancient Mediterranean. My focus was more historical and linguistic, but came back, needed a job, moved back to Houston. It's my hometown. I was living in Philadelphia at the time for grad school at Penn, but I learned quickly that you could make a lot more money in the oil and gas industry here than you could as a teacher, sadly enough. So I knew a guy who had a friend and took my first job at an exploration company in their sort of information management space. And then just, it naturally sort of evolved into more governance type work. And then at my couple of companies ago, large natural gas and electric utility headquartered here in Houston, privacy was something new at the time. And so naturally, they kind of came to the information governance space and said, is there anybody here who wants to help us stand up a program, develop principles and do road shows and do all this kind of stuff? And I said, sure, I'll do it. And that was my formal introduction into privacy. And I never looked back. And since then, I've been able to work with some great people. And now I'm here at Carnival.
Basically, a typical privacy story. You were kind of asked to do something, you said yes, and voila, here you are. And it comes from a variety of different parts in an organization, which I find really interesting.
Yep, and I love it. I am so glad that I raised my hand for that opportunity because, believe it or not, the challenges that learning privacy, it's called out of me so many challenges that allow me to use a lot of the skills that I learned, in school or that just come a little more naturally. So it's been a great way to apply, this, kind of a liberal arts degree to something that is sometimes more technical.
Well, we recently went on a cruise. It was wonderful. It was to Alaska. It was beautiful. I miss it a lot. And
Jealous.
it was amazing. And of course, because we're thinking of privacy and security all the time on our experience, we were mindful of all the places that we were giving data. Now, at the same time, maybe not everyone is taking their cruise with that lens. Can you share what kind of compliance do companies in the cruise industry need to think about that maybe customers don't realize?
Yeah, sure. There's a number, so I'll kind of just point out some of the highlights. Cruise companies operate in a highly regulated environment, and they must comply with an array of international, national, local laws, regulations. So it's beyond just a business onshore, right? And so some of the types are maritime laws. Cruise lines, they need to adhere to various sort of international safety and life at sea laws. And so you essentially become, when you start to think about it, effectively a cruise ship is kind of a traveling sort of business, right? That crosses over several different jurisdictional areas and at any given time needs to be prepared to respond, compliantly to a lot of those challenges. So it's kind of hard, because those laws regulate, aspects of our operations, the construction, the equipment, the crew, working conditions. Then you have environmental compliance, right, which is a really big one. We pertaining to discharge of waste, sewage that is all of that waste that gets generated on ships has to go somewhere. There's a lot of hazardous materials. We have a huge focus on preserving and protecting marine life, and we have a bunch of environmental protection plans in place to help us do that. There's all types of health and safety things, and then of course there's privacy, right? And so given the global nature of cruising, there's just almost all the laws that all the privacy and data protection laws you can think of apply to us, and so it makes it especially challenging because we have to prepare to respond to all of those challenges. So those are just some. There's a lot of customer touch points, on a cruise ship that impact privacy that you might not think about.
Can you share a little bit about what some of those are? Maybe provide a couple examples.
Yeah, sure. And some are, so there's, you say you've been on a cruise. There's areas where you can play games like casinos and things like that, right? And you, as part of interacting with those experiences, you exchange a lot of your sometimes your personal information, your personal financial information. We have health and medical, facilities and practitioners on cruise ships that are there to serve people with, disabilities or people who encounter safety incidents, things like that. So, there's a lot of passenger engagement touch points. There's, some cool apps that you can use to that you can download on your phone to enhance your experience. And depending on, where you are on the ship, you may, be guided to enjoy, this show or this, fun event. And so there's Wi-Fi on the ships. It's a really connected experience. And so, some of our apps are in the app store, and you can go and read the privacy policies around some of those things. But those are just some examples that I think people don't necessarily think about, when they're boarding a ship.
I think it's always helpful to have examples. So thank you for sharing. They're very fresh in my mind because we were just on the ship a month ago.
To me, it's the cruise
what were
card.
what were some of the things that you encountered on the ship that kind of stuck out to you from a privacy perspective?
You want to start?
The cruise card that you have that allows you to pay for stuff on the ship would be one. The app, which allows you to chat with your kids, with Jody, and how that data is treated once you leave the cruise ship and what can be done with that data. Those would be the big two, because they
about getting on the ship.
Well, yeah, that's right. Getting on the ship, right? Authenticating your identity,
and then even
right.
All the embarkation and disembarkation information. There was a lot there.
That's true. How they identify you to get off the ship, back on the ship, and then even backing up from the cruise line is just the difference of going through U.S. customs versus Canadian customs, and the pictures they want, the information they would want. And then you get into children that are on the cruise. It's just really an interrelated web of challenges that a cruise company has to face, not to mention all the other laws and things that you talked about. So that was our experience and what we thought was interesting. But we're nerdy.
And it does come with towel animals, which are the best things ever. So, and they're really hard to try and do. I took a class and it's very hard to do. Okay, but we're going to come back to privacy now.
Yes. So, Eduardo, one of the things that you had talked about is that just about every single privacy law from different countries apply, because you're an international company, you sail all over the place, all across the globe. And so how do you begin to manage privacy and security when a cruise might have people from the EU, the US, China, and all over the place, and you've got to figure out how to manage all these laws and do it in some coherent fashion? That's a tough challenge.
Yeah, it really is a tough challenge. Our approach, one approach that we've, found, successful, and that we think demonstrates, us going beyond compliance, is really just, taking the most sort of restrictive approach that we can, right? And really just adhering to those laws that, that place sort of the heaviest challenges on us from a compliance perspective, and then do our best to exceed, complying with those laws. And so that's one of the ways that we've found is better for us. We're constantly monitoring, the patchwork of U.S. state privacy laws and other laws globally that are continuing to come online. We're constantly monitoring those to look at, the areas already for which we have coverage, and kind of just really honing in and focusing our operational efforts and our programmatic efforts on the Delta, right? And just looking at, okay, we do a lot of these things already. XYZ new law has come online, and these are, some of the different challenges, brought about because of that law. So let's focus on those rather than, all of the things that we already do. So so that's one way. Another way is, we communicate regularly, across our jurisdictions. We try to set a global, standard and leave it up to our individual brand, privacy SMEs to develop their own sets of procedures and processes and standards that align, with the global approach, because it really supports sort of that some of the cultural and societal kind of uniquenesses that align with people's privacy, expectations and preferences in different parts of the world, because they're not the same, right? And so there's a degree of autonomy there across our brands, but we really all roll up into this higher standard that is very restrictive from a privacy standpoint.
One of the questions I'm always asked is, where should privacy sit in the organization? And in our pre-show, you gave a little bit of a hint of how you all organize that. I think because you have such a global nature, that's really interesting to people. Can you share, how is the team structured to be able to address all these different laws?
Yeah. So where, at a different company, privacy sat directly under legal, and legal was its own, organizational function, even outside of compliance, right? And so was ethics. But here at Carnival, we all of the functions I just mentioned sit under this larger global ethics and compliance organization, right? And that is really because it supports, our vision for privacy and some of the other functions that sit under that organization, such that we are the people that should be, doing the monitoring and checking, if you will, that the different, stakeholders are, that their processes and data transactions align with the guidance that we've set out, right? And so that's how it's structured right now, right? It sits under global ethics and compliance, and that really is because we want an inherent focus on monitoring the business, developing controls, monitoring and testing frameworks to understand where there's opportunity for improvement, where there may be areas to prevent and detect risk. But that's really our function, is offering, providing that guidance and that subject matter expertise, not actually doing the work, if you will.
A follow-up question is, some organizations have kind of a central approach, and then they do some of that work. Some have that hub and spoke, kind of the champion idea, where there might be a central team, and then there's other privacy SMEs or advocates through the organization. How does it work for you all? For example, if you have and let's just use corporate as an example. You have a corporate team, and let's say the marketing team wants to do something new and interesting. Does your team work directly with that marketing team, or is there also a privacy person, or even part of a person in marketing, who's responsible for privacy?
Yeah, the former. So I would say that, and so I think maybe that's more of the hub and spoke kind of thing. So if marketing wanted to do something, then we would work with that team directly to, help them understand the do's and don'ts of their ad tech, for example, right? And we would provide standards that supplement the policy to support, the work that they want to do, right? And we would be the ones that really provide that guidance to say, you can and can't do these things. But we would like, right? I think that as time, as our roles, across the industry just become more technical by way of just evolution and all these things, and we would like to have sort of these champions sit within each function who have some kind of formal / informal privacy responsibility such that they're the go-to person to work one-on-one with us. And we kind of do. I mean, we kind of do have that. Like if I were to work with, the marketing team today, there's a core set of people that I already know I would probably be working with, right? But it's not us doing the work. It's us providing the guidance and then letting them go and do the work. And then we'll come back around and have a conversation and say, okay, let's see how you did.
Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
So kind of speaking on that topic, every time I've been on a cruise ship, they're always trying to come up with new ways for people to have fun and engage and have a great experience so that 3 weeks later, like we're still wistful that we would be back on the cruise ship. And so, what I wanted to ask was, can you talk a little bit about how and when privacy and security kind of engage for offering new services? Like maybe when you first introduced a chat app so people could use that on the ship, because Wi-Fi in international waters can be kind of spotty, or some other example of a new service and how privacy and security can impact how that service is not only designed, developed, but also deployed.
Yeah, I can talk sort of just generally about, some of the types of services. So you mentioned when you onboarded that, they gave you sort of a spend card, right? You mentioned also that, you can download an app, stuff like that, right? We have similar products and services that can enhance the customer experience. And so, we've worked with teams that say to us, "Hey, we want to create this app that a user can download and that will basically track them, throughout their cruise journey to help them, get the best experience by pointing out, things on the itinerary that they've already, indicated as interesting to them, and so for us, you can imagine that that's risky, right? For all kinds of reasons. And so we work very closely helping the engineering teams and legal teams, talk to each other and understand each other to say, okay, let's really, sit down and assess sort of the impact to people's privacy that, a type of service like this would have. And a lot of times we find that, the engineering teams either are, should maybe come to us earlier because what they want to do is really more involved than they maybe initially thought it to be. Or they're just not really thinking through a lot of the privacy implications that come along with, an example like that, right? But we do have fun services like that you can, interact with, through your mobile devices and kind of carry with you, carry on you as a person, on your person throughout your cruise experience. But it comes with a really a process that really requires a lot of vetting to ensure that we're upholding people's safety.
Because I guess what's interesting about that story, Eduardo, is like when we were on the ship, there are people from Europe, there are people from China, Japan. And so when you're thinking about releasing that app and the engineers come to you, I bet you they're not only not thinking about privacy, but it's not just, U.S. privacy laws, because you're in international waters. But on top of that, you've got to figure out how to roll this out for residents of all these different countries whose laws are different.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so we make sure that, anyone engaging, with those types of products and services, is providing, sort of their own, actionable, informed consent, right? We don't allow anyone to engage with those services without allowing them to, to opt into doing so, right? And then if we at any point change, what the purpose of those services is, we again, we go through another round of making sure that we have, consent from our users to engage in that kind of activity. And so it really is, I would say that the impact we've seen really is sort of a flow down impact that I would say maybe is realized in an uptick of people wanting to exercise their rights, right? So a lot of times we'll see, people go have these cruise experiences, and then almost immediately after the cruise experience, right, they want to say, "Hey, delete my data," right? And a lot of times we have to explain to them, "Hey, because of different, it's not just privacy laws, but maritime laws and different international laws that we're subject to. We can't just do that, 5 days after you cruised with us, right? We have to legally, we are complied to, from an audit perspective, from just regulatory perspective, we're required to keep on to some data for some amount of time. But that's what those are some of the challenges that I would say is people are more informed, definitely, and more aware of the rights that they have over their personal information. And so, there is a challenge with deploying products and services that must meet, sort of this kind of, like you said, very diverse population of users from a privacy law perspective, but we take a very restrictive approach. We make sure we're transparent. We make sure we have their consent. And then we sort of handle that on the back end when people want to start exercising their rights and taking control of their personal information.
The privacy industry is on fire. We have new laws coming out all the time. You have people trying to create cool new services like we just talked about. Marketing is changing as well. And I'm curious, what are some of the big kind of internal challenges that you think your team is experiencing, which is likely very, very similar to what other teams are experiencing?
I would say data. Data is vital to any organization, and because of that, I would say that privacy, by just connection there is also is vital to is central, right? Is central to an organization. So we have lots of data, right? And we generate and transact lots of data as part of doing our business, right? And then at some point that data meets its business objective and needs to kind of get moved on throughout its life, right? And so I think one of the challenges is just making sure that as an organization, everyone understands their role as a data steward, and really, we use every customer touch point as an opportunity to inform, our guests of our data practices. We also use, a lot of our employee touch points as opportunities to remind them of their responsibilities to be data stewards, right? Because ultimately, that is what helps us, drive some projects and programs from actionable insights, but it also helps set us up beyond compliance. And so that's a challenge. I would say data is a challenge. Another challenge is just getting the business to see that we are really, here to enable, a lot of the ideas and services and products that they, come up with. We're not here to block those. We're here to support them, but we want to do that in a way that, aligns with, our policies and our standards. And so we try to position ourselves as partners that want to be involved early. And sometimes that's a challenge, but the earlier we can get involved, the better. The better we are, the better we're able to support those teams, and the more pleasant the experience, right? And so I would say those are two big challenges. The third one is we are a global organization, right? And so we literally sit in different time zones, different countries. I have counterparts that I was meeting with, at 7 a.m. who are, across the pond getting ready to go to sleep, right? So sometimes we need to, there's a slim sort of burden on us to make sure that we're, over communicating and doing everything that we can do to make sure that we're meeting regularly and that we're aligned. But those are three big ones that may be kind of obvious, but they impact us as well.
So when you're out at a cocktail party or hopefully soon on a cruise in the evening, what might your best privacy or security tip be for your listeners?
Yeah, I would say that if you are a privacy, professional or expert, I see myself as having a responsibility to help my family, friends, understand, the value of their information in ways that they can protect it, right? But if you're not a privacy person, right, I would just say that, be mindful of, when and how much of your personal information that you're sharing, and just kind of remember that, in different parts of the world, it's not so normal to just pass out your email or pass out your phone number, right? And in some places that might actually be frowned upon if somebody were to ask you that, right? And so the next time you're asked for a piece of personal information, whether it's at the doctor's office or your kiddo's school, I would just, I would invite you to really consider why people are asking for that information and what you are handing over.
And when you are not managing privacy for a global cruise line, what do you like to do for fun?
I love to run. So I am a runner and I love to ride motorcycles. So that is what I do for fun.
Privacy people like to hang out with other privacy people. And if someone listening would love to connect with you, where can we send them?
You can send them to LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. That'll be the best place to find me. I'm always open to new connections, primarily because I love to learn and listen. And so I always want to offer any, support I can. But I think, my first instinct is to just listen and learn from all of the very experienced people that I'm already connected with.
Well, we're so excited that you shared all that you did with us today. Thank you so much again.
Awesome. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.